November 2012, Hunt Valley, Maryland. How you guys doing?
Great.
We're getting there. We're almost done. The movies were ready by Thanksgiving. I went to the Kenilworth Mall to pick them up. The whole family came over. My father was a lot weaker now. The leaves had fallen off the trees since I'd been there in October. It was cold outside. We spent most of the time in bed. After the family had been over for a couple of hours, he emerged from his bedroom and came into the living room. Michael, he said, I want to watch the movies. Okay, I said. I put the movies into the technology machine and the images started to come across the screen. Black and white at first. Our great-grandfather, who we'd barely known, laughing and holding a shovel. Our uncle tethered to a leash, inexplicably. My grandmother hanging clothes from a laundry line. My father's cousin falling off a porch. Then the color came. My father as a child pretending to fall off a lifeguard stand. My grandfather burying my auntie in the sand, and on. And all my cousins and my aunts and uncles and sisters and grandmother and mom and dad were there laughing, heckling whoever appeared on the screen. After the movie was over, my father said he wanted to do a card trick. This was a tradition in our house. I always knew how he did it, and many years ago when he first started doing it, he'd fucked them up real bad. This night, though, was a pretty masterpiece performance. I was very impressed, so much so that I felt emotional and sadly didn't show my appreciation because I'm scared not to uphold my tough guy image. The trick was the same as it always was at the beginning. He'd get my innocent cousin Jeffrey to pick a card and show it to the audience. My father left the room for this so everyone could be sure he did not see the card. Jeffrey showed us the card. It was the Jack of Hearts. Once Jeffrey was done and he put the Jack of Hearts back in the deck, my father returned to the room and had me shuffle the deck. Jeffrey was sitting across the table at a faraway place on the couch. Jeffrey, my father said, holding the deck of cards, come closer. Sit right here, right by me, so you can see that I'm not up to any funny business. Jeffrey came and sat on the couch where my father had asked him to. Then my father asked him a series of questions where all the answers were numbers, like what's the number of your favorite baseball player, what month were you born in, this kind of shit. At the end of the last question, my father flipped over the top card in the deck and showed it to Jeffrey. Is that your card, he asked. No, Jeffrey said, looking nervous and holding up a two of diamonds. I'm sure there were other people in the room who were nervous too, but I knew that Terry had it under control. I knew as soon as he told Jeffrey to switch seats, and I could tell by the confidence in his demeanor. He had been so ashen and sad for the past several months. He looked like, now, the sly con man that had raised me. That's not your card? He said, laying on a thick act of indignation. Well, there's dark forces at work. Dark forces. This card I'm holding now is evil. I must sacrifice this card, and the good magic will find the one we're looking for. Then my father produced one of those blow torches that you used to start a fireplace with if you live in the suburbs, and he set this card in his hand on fire. Then, when it was about to burn his hand and ashes were dripping all over the floor, he dunked it in my uncle's beer. He then began to do some kind of shamanic chant over the extinguished card steaming out of the beer glass. May all evil be burned away and extinguished in the great fermented chalice. May the faith in the true power of magic be restored. May Jeffrey's card come true. May it return now. Dark forces be gone. He held his hands aloft and closed his eyes. Jeffrey, he said, the truth is right where you sit. The spirits are telling me it's right below you. The spirits are telling me to tell you to stand up. Lift up the couch cushion. Jeffrey did stand up and he lifted up the couch cushion. There's a card there. What card is it? Jeffrey held up the card and it was a Jack of Hearts. December 2012, Hunt Valley, Maryland. My parents had been brave and selfless, but they had been in denial. They kept telling us to wait to come home. Allie said we shouldn't wait. I believed her now. Her fortune-telling game was on point before. So Jenny believed her too, and we all flew home. My father had gotten a lot worse and reportedly had been moved to a hospice. I imagined his condition must be very serious. I was under the understanding that he wanted to die at home. I was the last to arrive at the hospice. I took a red-eye and slept till it was light out in Baltimore. When I got to my father's room, my sisters were already there. I was scared. But when I opened the door, he was just lying in bed, wide awake, and said, "Hello, Michael." And he sounded real aggravated, lying on this really uncomfortable-looking hospital bed. I was pleased to find him coherent, but wondered why the demonstrative, aggravated tone. "What's wrong?" I asked. "I'm dying," he said, laughing sardonically. "I know," I said, "besides that." "He doesn't like it here," Allie interrupted. "He says it sucks." "It sucks," my father confirmed. "I don't need to be here. They're keeping me here because they know I can pay the bill. I'm a cash cow. They know they can keep me here. It's horseshit. I'm saying all I need to do is say I'm leaving. They give me a paper, I sign it, it's done. I'm out." "All right," I said, "let's go right now. I'll get a wheelchair." "No, Michael," my father said. "You need to convince your mother. I can't do it anymore." "All right, I'll do it," I said. "Where is she?" Allie rolled her eyes. Jenny said, "She's getting lunch. Do you want anything? I can call her and tell her to add to the order." "Nah, I had a big breakfast. I'm not hungry." "Whatever, fatty," Jenny replied. This is where I ran out of time to write the story. Now I'm going to have to do this off the top of my mind. So anyway, at this point in the story, we quickly came to the conclusion that he wanted to leave, and my mom was just scared. She wanted to do the right thing. She'd been caring for this person for months, and she didn't know what to do. And I didn't know how on point his game was. Like, was he just making this stuff up? But I quickly discovered he was exactly right. There was 2 higher up people, actually 3, in the hospital decide whether to sign off on someone's paperwork or not. Now, legally, my father was right. If he said he wanted to leave, they could just give him a paper, he'd sign it, and he could leave. But he wanted me to convince my mom. And my mom, she was terrified. She didn't know what to do. She kept consulting these other people. One was this guy, I'm not going to say his real name. God bless you, sir, but I disagree with you eternally. Was a doctor. He always walked around with a clipboard and he wore a bow tie. I felt like it was an inappropriate fashion choice for that job. Just said you don't take it seriously. And another was this lady. She was kind of pretty. She was the head nurse. When I first saw her, I think I don't have a very good poker face. I was like, "Oh, you're good looking," and she didn't like that. And the third was a social worker. Now, I convinced my mom. I was like, "He wants to go home. It's going to be fine. We can handle it." And Jenny and Allie set up the hospital bed and the nursing care and all this kind of stuff. She's like, "Well, I just want to ask the doctor." And this doctor with the bow tie was like, "Well, we just don't want to move him now. It's not a matter of days or hours. We're talking more like weeks. So we're in no rush." That's what he said. And the social worker was like, she was kind of in between. "We want to make sure the transport home is safe, and we want to make sure you're comfortable with it." And the nurse lady was like, "Yeah, I agree with bow tie." So, I'm sleep deprived and obviously kind of like overwhelmed by the situation. And everybody goes home, and the first night I'm there, I stay real late with my father, and the whole time he's like, "Man, go home, stop watching me die." I was like, "Hell no, when am I going to see you again?" So we were watching stuff on YouTube. We like baseball, so we watched all this old Babe Ruth and Satchel Paige shit. And we watched some music stuff. He liked this movie called The Bank Dick. We watched a little bit of that. And anyway, he asked at a certain point, like, how's your record going? I was like, "Really good." And since I was on the interweb, I had this message that Eric sent me that day, because I had sent him a Guns N' Roses movie of them playing Wild Horses I was like, yeah. And I told him the whole story about how we were in Belgium and how it like brought us closer together, this knowledge that we were fans as kids and like reinvigorated our love and the fun of music. So I read him Eric's message, which was, GNR was such a dear group of friends who believed fearlessly in a particular way of being that has much to do with reverence for the transcendental power of music and the importance of loving togetherness as it did with drugs and supermodel girlfriends. It's so cheesy that I just wrote this, but I believe it. I mean, during Patience, they might as well be a bunch of preteen girls dancing around their bedroom in dress-up clothes at a slumber party. They just happened to get to do it with the whole world watching. If that's not winning, what is? At this point, my father looked at me and was like, yeah, but all you and Eric do ever is work on the computer. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, all you ever do is work. All you'd ever do is complain about how much work you guys have to do, how in trouble you are for your deadline and all this kind of stuff. You're doing music. People don't want to buy work. Everybody works. They want to buy joy. You should enjoy your work. And I was like, all right. And I was kind of taken aback by all that. Then he said, is Dan going to fix your bathroom? I was like, this is a weird non sequitur question, man. What are you talking about? He said, tell me, is Dan going to fix your bathroom? I was like, yeah, I talked to him about it. He said he can do it. He said, I want him to do it in May. The end of May, I want him to be there on your birthday. I was like, all right, whatever, man, sure. So he's like, now go home. Stop watching me die. I was like, no, man, we got to do one more thing productive before I go. Jenny, you said that you had a email message to Jenny that you couldn't finish. So I was like, I'll type it for you. And he's like, all right. And he sits up in bed and he's all like alert all of a sudden. He's like, are you ready? I was like, yeah. He said, Dear Jenny, I'm sorry to leave you. Period. When I come back and give you advice at an important time, in the form of a deer, or a breeze, or a dream, don't be scared. I interrupted at this point. I was like, oh damn, like a Jedi? He's like, yeah, but don't type that. Your sister doesn't like Star Wars. I'll miss you, but I'll always be there. Love, Dad. So I sent the message, and I left for the night. And so basically, thank you all for sitting here so long. I'm going to try and wrap it up and get to the magic trick. We got back the next day. He was way worse, and he basically like started to refuse to drink water because he didn't believe that we'd ever get him out of there. So I told, I was like, first of all, Bowtie, man, you're lying to me. Tell me it's weeks. He didn't drink water for 24 days. How long can you go without water? You're done. Nurse lady, you need to get the paperwork ready. We're leaving tomorrow. And social worker lady, I was like, I'm going to convince my mom. It's going to be all right. She's like, yeah. So I did convince my mom. Bowtie man, he didn't show up around there anymore. And the next morning, we showed up, and my dad wasn't even really talking that much at this point. And the nurse lady comes into the room, and she's like, well, the ambulance is running a little late. It'll be fine. I was like, what the And my dad just went, and my mom was like, what is he saying? And I said, he's saying, calm down, don't be an asshole. And she's like, and he went like this. So finally, the ambulance came, and these two black dudes came into the room, and Pua actually said to give my dad a baseball to hold. He's holding a baseball, and I pick up the baseball, I'm nervous, and he's like barely breathing, and the dudes, these guys who like have a super hard job, they're really stoic, they lift him off the bed onto the stretcher to leave. My mom's like, I don't know if we should do this. I was like, Mom, it's gonna be fine, we're gonna be home in a minute, let's get the stuff, let's go in the car. So I take my mom outside, I put her in the car, and I come back outside, I'm like, yes, got that done. I get back inside, and the two dudes are standing there, and my dad's like barely breathing, like this, and the lady with the clipboard, the nurse lady, comes and she stands in front of the door and she goes, he's actually really distressed right now, and I really can't recommend that you move him. And I looked at my dad at this moment, and he just goes. So I looked at those dudes, like the stretcher guys, and I had this baseball in my hand. I was pretty pissed off, and they just went like this. So I looked at this lady and I said, I understand what you're saying. We're leaving. And I looked back at the dudes, and they started pushing the thing through the door. The lady was still standing at the door. These dudes are pushing my dad super fast through the door. The lady has to get out the way. We're going out the hospital, running down the hall, like running. And I look back, and these guys are like looking at each other like this. We go out, I hold the doors for them. They go out. We go out and get in the ambulance, jump in the ambulance, get in the ambulance and close the doors. These dudes get in. They both look at each other and take a deep breath, and they look back at me and they go, "You all right?" I was like, "Yeah, go." And so we start driving, and immediately my thought at this point was, Dad, you better live or I'm going to be in trouble. But I didn't say that. I just put my hand on his legs, and his eyes were closed. I couldn't tell if he was listening. I felt like a dork talking to him. I know these cool dudes driving were going to judge me for it. But I said the whole way home, I said, we're passing Loyola High School now. We're on 695. We're on 83 North and all this kind of stuff, and he didn't open his eyes or nothing. Finally, we get back to their house, which is sort of, like lots of trees kind of neighborhood. And it was a nice, crisp December day with a blue sky. And I said, we're going to get out now. You're home. You really should check out the sky. I still didn't know if he was listening. And so the two dudes, super cool dudes, picked him up and put him out on the ground. And I swear, man, I didn't even know if these guys were listening to me. I think they were, because they stopped. And homie opened his eyes and smiled and looked at the sky. I was like, yes, I'm not crazy. So they took him inside and put him in a bed in his own bedroom. And my sister gave me a high five. And those two dudes, they gave me a handshake. I was like, thank you. And she's like, are you all right? I was like, yeah, I need a break. And she's like, yeah, go. I got this. So I texted Dan, and we went out into the woods, and it was late afternoon, and in the wintertime, we're almost winter, and it started to snow. We were standing by this river. And I don't remember much what we talked about, but I was like, yeah, my dad said that you're supposed to come in May and fix the bathroom. He's like, yeah, I know. I'm going to come. And later that night, my dad died, and that was sort of the end of that.